Asking me can be done online. Please tell me where and how.
It can be done online. So you need to actually go into the Greek tax authorities portal, which is called MyAve,
Yep.
and you can actually submit an application through the Greek tax portal.
All right, Dimitri, welcome to Buying Grace, mate. Thanks for joining me all the way from Athens.
Thank you. Thanks
How's
for
it
having me
going?
on the program.
That's all right. I wanted to touch base with you because, well, basically, it's funny how you came to me because I've been thinking about kind of getting a home loan in Greece because I've got all the properties there and want to leverage on that and da da da. And I was thinking to myself, man, I actually need to get in touch with someone who knows what they're doing. And lo and behold, I get this message as I was sitting laying down on the beach. In fact, we were talking and I said, I'm actually currently tanning on the beach. But I couldn't believe it because you're like, hey, we've never met. I'm a mortgage broker in Athens from Australia. I was like, are you joking? I'm sitting there going, what the hell's going on? We had a conversation and I've actually wanted to start doing interviews with people that are sort of along the lines of what I'm doing. Obviously in different aspects, you're from financing and maybe buying your own stuff and whatnot. But I thought a lot of people have constantly come up to me and they've sent me messages and gone, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Da, da, da. And I've been trying to kind of get people together to have a chat, to talk about what they do, talk about their experience within Greece, coming from Australia as well. And sort of how you can help people, how you're helping me as well. So, we're currently going for a loan together. I'll air this if you get me a good rate. If you don't get me a good rate, mate, I'm just going to air it and be like, do not work with this guy.
I'll try my best.
So talk to me. Yeah. How did you end up in Greece first? Because you're obviously from Sydney, we've spoken. I know that you got married to a lovely lady and migrated to Athens.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story. I'm from Brisbane, so I was born and raised in Brisbane, grew up there, and then met my wife, my now wife, in Australia almost 10 years ago now. She's from Greece, from Athens, and she's also in the national team here in Greece in race walking. So as part of her being in the national team, the back and forward we were doing for quite a few years, the Greek sort of federation said, look, we want to see you here more permanently. And I always wanted an excuse to be like, all right, let's go move to Greece. Let's do it. So the timing was just really, really good for the both of those things. And we made a decision, said, look, let's move to Greece. Let's see how it is. Loving it so far. It's really, really good. I'm enjoying it. Living in Athens is a really cool thing. Compared to the cities in Australia, obviously it's a lot more chaotic. Things are a little bit different here, right? But you're so close to the rest of Europe. You're in Europe, you can fly an hour away and you're in another country, another culture. So it's just a really, really cool place to be in. So that's what's got me over here.
To a different country for lunch.
I know, legit. You literally can. So it's a thing for us. It was more of a sort of a little dream that I had to want to do, but it was that kicker for me to sort of be like, all right, let's go and make it work. So now I'm here. I've obviously had have background in finance. So I was working with Macquarie Group for 7 years, and was in lending with them in business lending. So I sort of thought, how can I pair my English-speaking Australian background here in Greece? And I was fortunate enough to actually find a role here with a brokerage called IMS, and been working with them since and helping Aussies and international clients and Greeks abroad buy here in Greece.
Yeah. Which is something that I've constantly found that a lot of people have an issue with, which is generally the language barrier and what that brings with it along. It's not just a language barrier, but it's also understanding the lifestyle of the Greek, where, we've come from a 9-to-5 world, where the Greeks are at, sometimes 10 till 2 and then back again at 5 till 8, or sometimes they're not, or whatever it is, or, sometimes they open at 7. So it's understanding what not just the language, but the inotropia, I guess, the lifestyle of a Greek and sort of how to do business in Greece, because it does get frustrating. As I'm sure you're aware, you're living it, but I mean, as an Australian who goes in there for a couple of months a year or whatever at a time rather, and trying to get stuff done, I fall into the pitfalls of, God damn it, man. Like, I got to go to KEP and I got to go to the banks and I got to go to here, and I'm like, oh, and then they close it too, and someone's having a cigarette, and now Maria's having a frappe and Yanni's out with the goats for 3 days. I don't, and you're like, man, I got to get 13 stamps signed for a document, and of course I got to go back and forth. So it's and I've had a lot of clients that are always like, man, we just don't know how to deal with it. It does our head in, it frustrates us. The embassies in Australia, the Greek consulates and whatnot. I mean, I don't want to speak ill of them, but I think it's a very well known fact that they only operate 4 hours, and 3.5 of those hours are rolling cigarettes. So it's hard. So when someone like yourself who understands the Australian way of life or the Western way of life and come in there and kind of mold the two together, which is essentially what I've been trying to do with buying Greece, and it brings joy to my heart because you understand people's frustrations and you understand sort of how to navigate that, as you have been with me with my own. We've been talking back and forth. Oh, this is the pay slips, this and that, do this and do that. You're kind of blending the two worlds together to kind of create the loan or whatever it is that you're doing.
Well, that's what we're trying
Talk to me about. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's I guess what I'm trying to do is just to merge those two cultures together, because like you said, Greece, things are very different. Things happen very different. I'm still adjusting to how slow some things can actually take, how long things can take, and how slow things happen. And it's sort of like we can work on things here, but I think having someone over here that can sort of navigate and work their way around the system makes it a lot easier for you as a potential buyer, especially around the other side of the world.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing. And then just having that trust that someone understands what they're doing, especially and speaks the language, in your language, you can communicate. And we have a level of business professionalism in Australia, I think, at the very least, that you can obviously carry through, and which I've seen in you anyway, which is why I wanted to have a chat to you. No, that's all right. So explain to me, what's the process? Someone wants to come and get a loan with you guys, and I know, obviously you don't have to be Greek to buy in Greece. You just have to have money, essentially, and then depending on what level you want, is an option for Golden Visa or not. So lending wise, obviously I was born in Greece. It's a lot more different for me, but I mean, what's the situation? What would you say to people that are looking to get into Greece, looking to get a home loan? Because for me, firstly, when clients come to me, they're like, I want to buy in Greece, I want this and that. The first question I have, which is sort of the question that real estate agents would ask in Australia is, do you have a pre-approval? Because then they know whether you're serious or not. I also ask people, I'm like, do you have enough in me? And if they say no, and I'm like, come back to me when you get enough in me, because anything we do right now is pointless.
Yeah. That's a very good point you raised. So I guess just to sort of peel back the layers, who can get a loan in Greece, right? Pretty much most people around the world can get a loan in Greece, depending on where you're living and your tax residency.
Yeah.
In most cases, international buyers, so you don't have to necessarily be a Greek citizen. You can be a non-Greek citizen and buy here in Greece, and depending on your tax residency. In most cases, in most countries around the world, it's not a problem. And the Greek bank will obviously look at the income that you're earning overseas, as well as if you have any debts or any loan obligations, when they factor in the assessment here. For Greek citizens living abroad, obviously there's definitely a lot more options when it comes to financing. In particular, if you already own property here in Greece, and that's another thing we can sort of touch on in a moment as well. General rule of thumb: most people can buy property in Greece, and most people can get a loan in Greece. As a non-Greek tax resident or a foreign tax resident and a non-citizen, the maximum you'll be able to borrow up to is between 65 and 70%, depending on the bank.
Right.
For Greek citizens abroad, you can borrow up to 80%, like the same thing in Australia, right? The standard is sort of the 80%.
Sure.
If you own existing property in Greece, or you already have property that you own in Greece, then you can potentially look to even borrow up to 100% of the purchase price, which means you don't have to put really any deposit in. You're just covering your closing costs.
Is there any lender LMI over there and all that kind of stuff like there is here? Or?
No, there's no lender's mortgage insurance for that difference in the deposit. It's more you need to come up with the cash collateral to put the cash injection equity to put forward, or
Sure.
you've obviously got another property that you can put up. But there are a few things around the loan which it's good to know. So even like you mentioned, insurance, different to LMI, but in Greece to get a mortgage, you need to have fire, flood, and earthquake insurance at a minimum. Otherwise, the bank won't
Right. Okay.
finance the property. And it's actually not in all cases, but because Greece is such an old country, any properties that were sort of built prior to 1960 can sometimes be quite difficult to find an insurer to insure the property.
Right.
So it really depends on a few different things. So
Yeah.
before you sort of start the journey of buying, it's definitely a good idea to get in touch with a few people over here, a lawyer and
Hmm.
accountant. Get you off your me is number one. It's the first thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then get in touch with someone like myself or a mortgage brokerage who can actually guide you through the process of
Of course.
what to
Yeah.
expect and what to do.
Yeah, I know that building codes have changed since. Oh, I mean, there was what in the 80s. There was a massive earthquake. I think it was in Athens, and a lot of the buildings. I know Thessaloniki and Athens have both had massive earthquakes. One in the 80s, one in the 90s. I can't remember who was who, but essentially the building regulations have changed and become more stringent, rightfully so. And yeah, I've heard that pre-60s, it's very hard to kind of get any kind of insurance or whatever it is, even if you want to renovate or you rebuild or whatever it is, essentially you're either tearing it down or you're just leaving it as is.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is not that many. I mean, you do find those kind of buildings, but it's not really going to be in Athens, in central Athens. You know, I mean, they're going to be out in the villages somewhere as well.
Correct. Which I mean, look, the
Yeah.
banks will fund any purchase around the country. Obviously, there's certain the property has to be in a certain condition. Like you can't go and buy some chicken coop in some
Eripio.
village
Yeah.
somewhere, right? And be like, the roof is caved in. And you're like, oh, I'm going to buy this. Bank just won't use it as security unless you renovate it. But so when you're looking at buying, obviously it needs to be something that is in a decent condition or can be
Of
renovated,
course,
because
yeah.
there are options for renovation loans, construction loans. Greece does both of those things as well.
Right. Action loan is something else that I wouldn't mind getting into as well, but we can talk about that down the track. We can might even get you back on,
Yes, I'd love
see if
to.
anyone has any questions for you, and maybe make it a bit of a what's it called, a common experience. Okay, so basically we get all the documents set aside. What is it that you need from Australians to to continue? So I've got our
Yep.
from here. I'm ready to roll. I've kind of found a property. What's the next step from there for you guys?
So next step is to look at getting a pre-approval from the bank, which is
Hmm.
exactly what you do back in Australia, right?
Yep.
You'd go to the bank or the brokerage and you'd say, hey, this is the amount of money I want to borrow. This is the property I'm either thinking of buying, or this is the budget I have in mind.
Sure. Yeah.
Can I afford the loan? And then we will do an assessment. So we'll request some documentation from you.
Hmm.
I guess the main three different types of documents we'll need: ID, income verification, and also your GDPR, which is your data privacy protection declaration, that type of thing. The three main income verification documents the bank will ask for are your last 3 years tax returns, so your income
In
tax
both
return.
countries, or are we just talking about one country?
Just about Australia for the moment. So
Okay.
if you're living in Australia and don't have any property or any income over here in Greece, your last 3 years tax returns, your notice of assessment, and
Hmm.
your income tax return. Then the bank will
Yep.
ask for, they'll want to see at least 2 pay slips, but they typically will want to see at least a month's worth, depending. I know in
A
Australia, a lot of
month's
people
worth,
get
yeah.
paid weekly. So,
Weekly or fortnightly,
or
yeah.
fortnightly, so at least a month's worth of pay slips, or 2 pay slips. And then the last thing is a credit report. So through Equifax. So the Greek bank will need to verify
Yeah.
debts or any loan obligations you have back in Australia, and they will account for that in their assessment, which is, make sure that they're adhering to responsible lending and the European standard and the
Hmm.
standard that the Central Bank of Greece says. So they're the main sort of income verification documents. And then you've got things like um, your privacy protection form, a solemn declaration if you
Yeah.
don't own property in Greece, or if you do own property in Greece, they'll ask for your NFIA. But touching on your point just before about the additional documents, so that would, those are the types of documents that we'd need for someone not earning an income in Greece. If you already own property in
Right.
Greece, if you're earning rent in Greece, you're earning an income in Greece, then the bank will ask to also see your Greek tax returns, which is there's a few
Mm.
different. I've learned there's quite a few different tax forms here. Um,
Believe
the
me, I know.
the one that we need is called Ekatharistiko, which is
Yeah.
pretty much the sort of not the summary
The
tax return, the
overall
one that
tax return, yeah.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
the little code at the up the top is FEP. So that's the
Yep.
one that the bank will want to see, including a if you're earning like rental income, a few rental statements just to show that the income's coming through,
Sure.
and the Greek banks will look at income generated overseas and here in Greece when they do their assessments, and they'll also look at any rental income. So a lot of people have rental properties in Australia. They will look at that income, whatever's listed on a tax return. Um, and they will apportion obviously how much of an income they'll use
Sure.
against the assessment based on what it is. Like if you're earning, you know, if you're I've had a few clients where they're just earning pure, share income from an investment pool. The banks here in
Sure.
Greece aren't as flexible when it comes to looking at that type of income
Uh,
because it's a lot
okay.
more volatile. They like steady
Yep.
income, consistent income that's recurring. So they're the
Right.
sort of things that they look at. But um, the only other document that we would need to review are the 3 years tax returns here in Greece.
Right. And just to touch on something as well, because I remember asking you this question, with regards to your credit score, Australia isn't affected, but Greece does have its own credit scoring system as well. So if you go for 5 loans and get rejected, they obviously have their own credit scoring system.
Yes, correct. Greece does have their own.
Right.
Obviously, if you're that they will only look at Greek tax residents. So if you've got enough in you, and you're applying for a
Yep.
loan, effectively the equivalent of Equifax here in Greece will record that there's been an inquiry, or is the same as what you'd expect in Australia.
Sure. Yep.
The main difference is they'll only look at that if you're a Greek tax resident or if you've got enough IMI. There are some banks out there, or mainly one bank out there, that will allow non-tax residents to actually apply without enough IMI. So
Right.
in those cases, actually not actually 100% sure if it's recorded. I don't believe it is because there's no sort of AFIMI to link it to. But the Greek system has its own credit reporting agency, which they will look at. Obviously, it doesn't affect your Australian credit reporting. The Greek banks can't log into Equifax to see, to make an
Yeah.
inquiry.
Yeah.
Hence why they ask you to provide the copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
But just actually touching on that type of there's two things I actually wanted to touch on when it comes to that Equifax credit report. One is the Greek banks will consider all of anyone's debts that they have, whether it's credit card, personal mortgage, car loan, personal loan, anything,
Whatever
and
it is. Yeah. I
whatever it
assume
is.
even Afterpay and all that kind of stuff.
Not necessarily. It's more if there's a
Okay.
constant usage of an afterpay, for example, and it's like a
Oh,
buy now
okay.
pay later, and it's constantly there. But in most cases, they're
Right.
looking at the monthly repayment on that.
Mm-hmm.
So what in quite a few cases, because Australia is such an expensive country to buy property in, a lot of people are quite leveraged already. So
Yeah.
sometimes
Right.
if you're highly leveraged in Australia, it is sometimes difficult to get an approval from a bank here purely because
Mm.
of the existing debt level that's already chewed up that servicing buffer for the Greek bank. So
And
it's definitely something to get in touch with us so we can do that preliminary sort of assessment to give you an idea on your borrowing capacity.
I remember having a chat to a lady from, I don't know, one of the banks last year, and I think you brought it up as well. And there was a little mathematical equation that you both did, which is, I can't remember exactly how much, but essentially something has to equate to 40% of the loan or your debt. Does that make any sense to you? Like, once you put all your debt together, your monthly debt has to be lesser than 40% of your
In
loan
most
repayment, or is it
in
something?
most cases, the Greek banks will look at a debt to income ratio,
Right.
and it depends on the bank. Each bank has a different credit policy. Each bank has a different appetite as to how much they want to lend. In most
Mm.
cases, around that 40% is where the banks will sort of be comfortable. And
So,
effectively,
so you have to, all your debt has to be under 40% of the loan amount or the loan repayment amount.
typically what the bank will do is they'll look at your income, your net income. So everything's calculated on a net basis, which is not sort
Yeah.
of what we're familiar with in Australia. It's always on a gross. So everything here is
Gross.
calculated
Yeah.
on a net basis, and they will in order to remain compliant with Greek Central Bank of Greece lending policy, they need to have a max. You can only have a maximum of up to 40% debt to income ratio in most cases.
Right.
So effectively, 40% of your net monthly wage can go towards a loan repayment, whether that's here in Greece,
Right.
Australia, or in Canada, wherever it is. The Greek
Whatever.
bank
Yeah.
will take into account that debt obligations, and credit cards are another one that a lot of people don't realize. The banks, even in Australia, the credit policy, the
Mm.
banks in Australia will account for usage of a credit card. In Greece, it's 2%. So 2% of the limit, not the amount you're using. So that's where I think
So
some people,
even if it's zeroed out,
even if it's zeroed out, they will still apply in most cases a 2% usage on the
right.
on the credit card. Again, each bank has a different policy, so things are a little bit different.
Oh.
And that's why it's important to to have a broker like us who can sort of guide you and say, look, based on what I can see here, these are the
Mhm.
banks I recommend we look at applying for. In most cases, the Greek banks will apply not a conservative not all banks, but they will look at a little bit more of a conservative approach when it comes to foreign income. In
Okay.
some cases, they will look at 90% of your net income, not 100% of that, to account for fluctuation in the Australian dollar and the euro. So
Of course. Yeah.
that is another thing that the banks do, to make sure that they're um, servicing, sensibly when they're looking at an application.
Hmm.
So there are a few things that we can obviously look at with regards to how you would structure an application. But in most cases, the income that you earn in Australia, including rental income, can be used as long as it's declared on a tax return. That's the other important thing is
Obviously. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
if a lot of people have, um, company profits and what have you sitting in the company entity and it never actually distributes to you personally. That's
Yeah.
something that the banks will look at, only the personal taxable income, which is coming through your tax return.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Say pre, excuse me, pre-approval happens. How long does that generally take once you apply?
Look, 2 to 3 weeks generally is the rough
Okay.
timeline for pre-approval. And the
Okay.
reason it is different to Australia. Like Australia, you can usually get an approval within a couple of days, or even some banks the same day.
Mm.
But with regards to Greek banks, obviously there's a lot more due diligence that needs to go into it. It's foreign income. It's a client living overseas, so there's a few extra things that need to be passed. So typically allow up to 3 weeks. In most
Yep.
cases, comes in within 2 weeks. But get in contact with us early so that way you give yourself that time. And the pre-approval is then
Hmm.
valid for 90 days.
Yeah.
So you've got validity
Which
on
is the
there.
same here, I think, isn't it?
Same in Australia, it's 90 days. So
Yeah.
you sort of got 90 days where you can go, make an offer, get it accepted, and then move to the next stage. If you haven't found a
Yep.
property in that 90 days, in most cases, we can get a renewal of that pre-approval from the bank. So that's something
Right.
that obviously the bank will need to approve, but in most cases they do. So you've got time, but in saying that, things take a lot longer here. So
Hmm.
the 90 days can actually sort of happen real quick, based
Yeah. Yeah.
on how long it takes to sort of get things rolling and get things done.
Do you then need a power of attorney in Greece to go through that whole process, or is it just simply signing away to you guys that, yeah, I allow you to operate on my behalf
Look,
Because what happens once that loan gets approved, for argument's sake? Yeah.
so the loan gets approved. At that point, obviously, you'll get a letter from the bank, which is sort of a pre-approval letter confirming all the details of
Sure.
the
Yeah.
loan, the loan term, the rate, the amount, the loan to value ratio, all that type of information. And then once you've actually found a property, at that point, or you've agreed on a price, at that point you'll contact us, and you'll say, "Hey, Dimitri, I've found a property," and there's a list of documents that will need specific to the property that you're buying, in order to then proceed to the next stage, which is the legal and technical inspection of the property.
Yeah.
That at that stage, obviously, is where sometimes if we don't have everything sort of lined up, there can be some delays. And the reason I say that is because the Greek banks require you to be able to, well, in order to initiate the legal and technical inspection, they require the client to have a bank account with the bank. So in most cases, National Bank of Greece, Eurobank, they will allow for a power of attorney to be appointed, to allow, to act on your behalf here in Greece,
Yeah.
to open up a bank account, to go through the ID process for you, and to do anything relating to the bank accounts. The power of attorney needs to be a registered lawyer here in Greece. It can't be your friend or anyone. It needs to be a legal representative, registered lawyer.
Unless they are a lawyer, which my
Unless they are
uncle's a judge, so
Oh, there you go.
yeah,
You're set.
I'm kind of
You're
lucky in
set.
that sense. Yeah.
And then that power of attorney obviously needs to be executed either in person here in Greece, if you're going to be here. Otherwise, it needs to be done through a consulate or embassy in Australia, a Greek consulate or embassy in Australia. Once the power of attorney document's been completed, then your lawyer can go and open up the accounts here in Greece, and get all that process started for you. That's why a lot of Aussie Greeks are traveling to Greece yearly, right, for holidays. If you're going to be here in the next couple of months, or if you're going to be here in summer and you're sort of thinking, I really want to buy something in Greece, when you're here, we can assist in opening up an account for you. But if you've got a pre-approval in track, but it's a good idea to open up a Greek bank account, because once you've got the Greek bank account, then it's a lot easier. Those
so
sort of next
easier.
steps.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, look, if you're going to go to Greece, just go to an accountant, get enough IMI done. It takes a couple of days, as long as all your documents are in place, and open up a couple of bank accounts. Just throw in €5, €10, and let it, because I think they suck maybe 60 cents a month or whatever to get them open. I might just have a couple of banks, so whichever banks that you think, just open up 2 or 3 accounts, and you can shut them off whenever you want. And that way you're just ready to roll from Australia.
Exactly. It makes it a lot easier. But there are ways to do things remotely, which is a good thing. And and this is why I think preparation is really key for those who live in especially Australia. You're 26 hours away from Greece. You can't just jump on a flight, quickly fly to Greece, sign some documents, and fly back. You're not living in.
And if you could, I don't think getting €100,000 would be the issue.
Exactly. So, the reality is it's good to be prepared. It's good to get in contact with us early so we can guide you through the process of what you need, because, first thing, yes, AFIMI. Second thing is, have you got a bank account? Can you get a bank account? And also when you're coming to the loan process, getting that power of attorney, having all that sort of completed, you can do it all remotely. Like there's no concern with not all banks. Some banks require you to physically come to Greece and open up an account and that type of thing. But there are ways to do it remotely. They do take a little bit longer, but in saying that, there's options there. I think another important thing is also to make sure that when you're actually looking at purchasing property here in Greece, that you are at some point pre-approved, because there's the purchase price that people see online isn't typically the purchase price that you're going to end up paying for, right? So it's important to make sure that, you do have a pre-approval, that the bank said they'll give you the money, because you don't want to go through the process of, falling in love with the property and speaking to the agent, getting an offer accepted, and then finding out that you can't even get the loan for it. So,
Yeah.
that's something that is, highly recommended. But also the purchase price that you see online, isn't always, again, going to be the price that you confirm at. You need to also consider at least 10% for additional costs when it comes to buying a property, which, in comparison to Australia, when you think about it, it's pretty steep, 10% closing costs.
Yeah.
And that includes your cost, like your notary, your stamp duties that are paid to the Greek government, your land registry fees, real
Your
estate
lawyer,
agent
your
fees,
mechanical, all that kind of
all that
stuff. Yeah.
type of stuff. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I
about
generally
10%.
tell all my clients, I'm like, look, put aside whatever price you see, just add 10%. You'll probably walk away with 3%. It might end up being about 6 or 7% generally, but I just say have 10% as a buffer.
As a
Something
buffer,
blows out,
correct.
something there's an issue, this and that, you'll at least you're covered. Now, with regards to fees and stuff, what's your situation with? Do you guys charge? How do you make obviously you make a cut? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, great question. So we work the same way as brokers do in Australia. So there's actually no cost to use our service. Our
Hmm.
service is a completely free service to our clients, and we get paid a commission by the bank, just like the banks do in Australia. It's an upfront one-off commission that the bank pays the
Oh, okay.
brokerage, just like Australia. So it's not added to your fees, it's not added to your interest rate, it's not added to your loan. None of that. It's a completely
Oh,
separate
it's not for the
payment.
life of the loan. I thought there was like a percentage that comes out for the life of the loan.
In Australia, the brokers have a trail commission. That doesn't exist here in Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a
Okay.
one-off, up the, for introducing the business and managing that whole process. So
Sure.
the good thing we always say to our clients is it's free to you. Our service does not cost you a dollar, which is a really good thing, because in some other
Yeah.
countries the mortgage brokers charge. So a lot of people, not avoid, but that they want to consider costs associated with a broker. But yes,
Hmm.
mortgage brokers here in Greece, we don't charge.
Right, that's good to know. Yeah, because I mean, I've always had that fear put in me of, oh, I know the mortgage broker. I've heard so many stuff, and I mean, I've used brokers here, not for big loans, but small sort of loans, this and that, just to see if they can get a better rate and whatnot. And I've even paid someone $1,000, but I had a client who went through a mortgage broker 2 years ago, and he goes, yeah, it's free, and I'm like, free? Okay, that's interesting. And then obviously spoke to you, and you're like, yeah, it's free, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So they work differently in Greece, and wasn't sure if it was, like a trail, like you said, or just a one-off payment, but that makes sense. And obviously, if the
Yeah.
client's not affected by it.
The client's not affected by it, and I mean the good thing is with the pre-approval, you really don't lose anything.
Hmm.
It's getting an approval from the bank. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no fee to get a pre-approval. Even the good thing is with the documents, it's all in English, so you don't even have to translate anything, which saves you a little bit of
Right.
time
I was
there as
actually going
well.
to ask about that. So, yeah.
The documents need to be either in Greek or English. So that is one thing that the banks will require. The documents have to be in either English or Greek. The good thing with obviously being in Australia, everything's in English, so you don't need to worry about translation. Um,
They don't need
the
to be apostilled and all that kind of stuff and certified and
They do at final approval.
at the
Not at
final
the
approval. Yep.
pre-approval stage. So pre-approval stage,
Yep.
the documents are as they are, so there's no concern there. Once you've got through the
Yep.
legal and technical inspection, which is what we spoke about just before, and everything has
Hmm.
come back and all is good, then we move to the next stage, which is the final approval, and that's the bank's specific approval to the property you're buying. So the pre-approval is not
Right.
property specific. You don't need to have a property. You don't need to have found something. It's more, me as an applicant, how much can I borrow? And then the final approval is actually specific to the property that you're buying. So that final approval is pretty much after all the inspections have been done, after the valuations have come back to the bank saying, based on the valuation, this is the exact amount that you're going to be getting from the loan. And obviously at that point, or prior to the settlement, is when the banks will need apostille documents to be sent through. But it's only
Right.
government documents which need to be apostilled. You're really only talking your notice of assessment or your income tax return.
Yeah.
they're the only actual documents that need to be sort of
Okay.
apostille. And look, I know, I mean, I had to do it for my wedding actually when I came to Greece. I got married here, and had to get a few documents
Oh,
apostille.
beautiful.
And I think I had to, from memory, I had to get them. Yeah, I had to get them. What did I have to do? I forgot where I went. Some government agency, Department of Foreign Affairs, maybe, to get the
In
actual
Australia or
apostille
in Greece, you mean?
In Australia. So
I
you had to book
I
an
I
appointment.
had
Have you
to.
done it before?
Yeah, I got stuff done because I actually went up for a home loan with Eurobank. I got a pre-approval and all that kind of stuff. And at the end, they needed stuff apostilled. And I went to it. There was a certain lawyer who can express them essentially. And I think it cost me like, I don't know, $250, $300 for five. I think it was $50 a document essentially. But he did it there and then. And whereas you can book through your consulate, you can do
Oh,
whatever it
okay,
is
you
and take
can
long.
do all that.
But I
There
was
you
like,
go. That's great.
I at least because I was in a rush trying to get everything, and I just rang people, and I got friends that are lawyers who I called this guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I can do them. It'll just be an extra charge." And I'm like, "That's fine, just do it." So you can rush them out, but I think there is also the longer process of booking in with a consulate or booking in
Oh,
with
I did the longer process.
wherever it is.
No,
Yeah. I mean,
there you go.
well, if you don't need to, yeah. Talk to me about rates. What's the rate situation in Greece at the moment? Because I know it's pretty low. And I know we've spoken, but I'd rather it come from you because I've spoken to a few people. They're like, "How much? What's the rate?" And I said, "It's this," and they can't believe it. So, how are we looking in Greece?
Look, the rates are considerably less than what you're paying in Australia,
Yeah,
right? Very much so.
of course.
The rates, look, again, it depends on the bank. In most cases, the rates are actually quite similar across all the banks. There's not a huge difference. It's not like the banks are
Hmm.
competing against each other here on rate and trying to drive rates and all that. They're all quite similar.
Yeah,
You can sort of start in broad terms, get fixed rate for 3 years at about 2.9%. So,
right,
that's fixing it in for 3 years at 2.9. Then you start to sort of move up from there. There's 5 years at 3.5%. Then you've got 10 years at 3.9%, 15 years at 4.2, and then it starts to go up from there. And then you've got your floating rate. Your variable rate is similar to the concept that Australia has. So it's based on a European 3-month Euribor, which is the European Central Bank
right,
interest rate, similar to the reserve cash rate of Australia. And then the bank applies a spread to that rate. So last time I checked, which was a couple of weeks ago, the Euribor was 2.002% plus the bank's spread, which is typically between 1.5 and 2.5%. So you've
and the
got
bank spread means that's just their commission, essentially, like what
Well,
they want
that's
to
the
make on top
bank's
of it.
income that they make, correct. And that's based on a
Yeah,
risk
yeah.
profile. So they'll obviously look at every
Hmm.
application and determine, like every bank does, what's our risk here. And then that um, spread will be applied. So the good thing is the spread stays the same for the life of the loan. That doesn't change. So if your spread is, 2%, then it's 2% for the life of the loan. So the only time the rate will be increased or decreased is if the European Euribor changes, which is
Right.
a good thing. But at the moment, your variable rates are sort of between, that 4 to 4.5% range. So it's definitely more attractive to fix at the moment. There are some lower
Right.
rates we can get through some of the other lenders as well. It all just depends on whether you're a tax resident of Greece or not. So there are a lot of Aussies I've met so many Aussies and not just Greek Aussies, but also Aussies who have moved to Greece
Yeah.
over the
Yep. I know a
last
few as well.
year, and they're buying property here, they're living here, they're tax residents.
Yeah.
Once you're a Greek tax resident, you actually get a lot more benefits when it comes to lending. So you can get access to some lower rates, which is really, really good.
Hmm.
One thing I guess to consider as well is, which is a bit foreign for us in Australia, is you've got a tax that the Greek government charges on the interest rate. So the tax is either 0.12% or 0.6% on top of the interest rate. The 0.12 is if the property is your first residence or it's a holiday home, or it's a permanent
That's
residence,
right. Yeah, we're talking about this.
right? So it's 0.12%. If it's a pure investment property, then the rate is 0.6 percent. The tax, the actual rate to the bank doesn't change. Your rate might be
Right.
3%. For example, let's say argument's sake, the rate's 3%. If it's an investment property, the actual rate you'll pay will be 3.6%. The bank takes the 3 and then they collect the 0.6 and then give that to the Greek government. The same 0.2%. So keep that in mind is, even though your rate might be 3% with the bank, the actual final rate will be 3% plus whatever the government tax.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And just to give people an understanding of sort of what the loan repayments are like, I think we were looking at a couple of $100,000 for myself at 100% lending if we can, whether we split it up or whatnot. And you said that roughly the loan repayments were about €950 a month or something like that. So, which is, completely fine. I mean, considering what that gets you in Greece, a couple €100,000 gets you a far lot more than what it would here in Australia.
It all comes down to there's a few things, right? The main factor is actually not the rate. It's more the loan term, the term of the loan.
Yeah.
Right? In Greece, the banks will provide a loan up to a maximum of 35 years, between 30 and 35, depending on the bank. But the actual loan needs to be repaid, and the maturity needs to be by the age of 75. So, if you're 40, for example, you've still got up to 35 years you can potentially get a loan for. If you're 60, you've only got 15. So, if you're trying to get a 200 or 300,000 euro mortgage, but repaying it back over 15 years as opposed to 35, your monthly installment's going to be a lot higher. So you've got to pay all that amount back within a shorter time. So one thing to obviously account for and consider is how long that tenure is. So that's another thing that obviously you can do. Through the company I work with, IMS, if you jump on their website, you can actually have a look at a loan calculator and sort of play around with, what's the property value, what's the loan amount, what are the rates, and then the term, and work out your repayments. From an investment perspective, I've actually noticed, and I'm talking about this right from personal experiences. I've actually seen that there's good opportunity for investment here. The barrier to entry is a lot less than what it is in Australia. You can, it's a lot lower. You can buy at a pretty reasonable price, and in most cases, your rent is covering the mortgage. So I
was going to say the return on investment here is insane.
You're almost
in Greece, as opposed to Australia.
Positively geared. It's the opposite in Australia.
Yeah.
Like I was dipping money into my mortgage in Australia, and I was like, this doesn't sound like an investment. Obviously, Australia's got a higher capital growth, fair enough. But, when you're looking at getting a return on your money, you want to make sure that it's not costing you a lot either. So Greece still has that opportunity, and I think it's something that is very good for investment, and something that obviously, if you can buy a property here in Greece and rent it out however you want, whether it's long-term, short-term, Airbnb, you've got the option to use that income to pay your mortgage, plus you've got a place to stay when you're here. Like, you're sort of getting the best of both worlds, right? So that's how I sort of view it.
And so just before we wrap it up, how do people get in touch with you?
So you can either contact me directly through I've got an Instagram page, I've got a TikTok page as well. Otherwise,
we'll put all those details up.
Yeah, thank you. And you can also contact us through IMS, so Individual Mortgage Solutions is the company I work with. And you can contact us online through our portal. There's also other options. There's other ways to get in touch, and even through Spitogatos. So I know there's another. It's like the equivalent of realestate.com for Greece. It's
just with crappier photos.
The photos are very they're different. I've noticed that. I was like, you scroll on realestate.com or domain.
Oh my god!
You're like, everything's like beautifully, and then you jump on the Greek one, and some of them are really good photos.
It's the equivalent of like looking at Lamborghinis and looking at like shit boxes that are 40-year-olds and rusted out and everything.
It's funny, when I was looking for property here, I came across. Look, I think actually Spitogatos is an amazing tool because you can refine.
I think so as well.
Price, you can refine by a whole bunch of things. Age of the building. But the quality of some of the sellers or the agents that are uploading to the platform, you just think like, I remember looking at one property and the agent standing there in the mirror of the bathroom and he's just holding their phone and you can see them in the photo. I'm like, oh my,
Yeah.
like, come on,
Yeah, that
guys.
was his Tinder profile at the end of it as well. So it's just two things in the price of one.
But it is, it
Um,
is definitely good to get in contact, get in touch. Happy to arrange a phone call, a Teams, just to go through everything. I mean,
and the other thing, lastly, I was going to say was, and accreditation, just so people know that you guys are legit. How can they find your accreditation? How can they check it? Is there a government portal? Is there something? Just
yep.
tell people how they can,
It's
do
all
that.
it's all online through our website. You'll see our
Mm-hmm.
details. To be a brokerage in Greece, just like Australia, you need to be licensed through the Central Bank of Greece.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just, no
Yeah.
one can obviously just go and open up. You
Start
need
up.
to
Yeah.
start up. You need to be registered. It is obviously home loans here in Greece are regulated by the Central Bank of Greece. The Greek banks are regulated by the Central Bank of Greece, also regulated by the European Central Bank. So there's like that double
Yeah. Yeah.
layer of protection. And brokers,
Yeah.
as a provider of financial services, needs to also be licensed under the Central Bank of Greece. So
Right.
it's all licensed and done correctly. The GDPR, which is the data privacy protection declaration, obviously needs to be completed and filled out, which gives
Mm-hmm.
us your authorization to act on your behalf to deal with the
Yeah.
bank. So everything is done very, very much kosher there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that chat and clearing all that up. And yeah, I've wanted to get you on ever since we had a chat a couple of weeks ago, and obviously dealing with my situation. But yeah, for more information for anyone watching or listening, wherever this goes out, buyinggreece.com.au and at buyinggreece across all the socials. I'll put up Dimitri's personal details. And again, I'm more than happy to continue talking about how my process is coming along, obviously, with you. It's been very straightforward and very simple. And, obviously just waiting on more documents from my end. But look, I'm going to open this up to people and see if they've got any more questions, because guaranteed someone's going to be like, hey, what about this? And I'm just more interested about getting your side of the story out rather than firing questions at you. So yeah, maybe I can get you back on in a couple of weeks' time. We'll figure it out
That'd be
and see
great.
how we go and see what kind of feedback we get back. But that's about it. Thank you so much for jumping on, man. And yeah, all the best in Greece. Well, it's getting cold here as well, so I guess you guys are going to start getting warm.
It's getting warm. Like even now, the days are getting longer. Like go back a month ago, I look out at my office at 5 a.m. and it's pitch black, and now it's 6:30 and the sun's up, and I'm like, oh
I
yeah, we're
know,
getting there
I know.
slowly.
I was driving home. Yesterday. It's 8 o'clock, 8:15, and it was dark. And I'm like, man, it's happening. I don't like it. But anyway, it just means that I got to come to Greece in July. And so it's simple
Yeah,
as that.
exactly.
Anyway, all right. Thank you. We'll wrap that up. Okay, so back at it just quickly, and hopefully it hasn't killed the other recording. Let's see how we go. But yes, as we killed the recording, we're having a chat, and I'm like, Afimir. Now, this is one thing that I've been asked a few times. People have told me that it can be done, and you just said that it can be done. So let's talk about it. Afimir can be done online. Please tell me where and how.
It can be done online. So you need to actually go into the Greek tax authorities portal, which is called MyAve. And you can actually submit an application through the Greek tax portal. So you'll put all your details it'll ask you all your personal details, and then it'll ask if you're a tax resident of any other country and the details of the tax residency as well. Once you've done that and you've submitted the application, the system will then make you book a meeting with a representative from the tax office. So there's actually, you select your day and you select a time that is available, and it's literally like a team Zoom meeting. What they'll do is they'll review the application, and then they'll actually have a discussion, sort of like what we're doing now, and they'll just verify that you're a real person, that you're not a robot, and then they provide you with the Afimi straight after that. So I was actually quite shocked because I had clients that were speaking to lawyers and accountants here in Greece, and it was taking like a week to get their Afimi, which is actually sounds pretty quick, but even sometimes longer, 2 or 3 weeks. And then I had sent an email I've got an email which I sent to my clients to say, look, you can get it online, here's the steps. And one of my clients contacted me the next day and sent me the Afimi document. I said, didn't I send this to you yesterday? He goes, yeah, I booked an appointment straight away. I got an appointment this morning
Wow.
and they gave me the IFME, and I was like, whoa.
And
That's less than
it doesn't
24
matter that
hours.
you're internationally? It doesn't matter that you're
No,
internationally?
this client was overseas as well. So obviously the time difference in Australia is going to be something to consider.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
look, if you do the application, you book the meeting, within 24 hours of booking the meeting and having that completed, you can get your IFME. So it's very quick. It's something that can be done online. You don't need to. I when I got my IFME, I thought, I had to go through an accounting in Greece, and it took me bloody ages. But now you can do it all online. It's very quick, so it's a good thing.
Can you send me that email, please? Send me that link or whatever it is, so I can pass that on to people and
Sure.
help them out, because everyone's like, yeah, how do we do that? That's obviously the biggest step and then lawyers know about that, so they're charging through the roof. Okay, so thank you so much again. We'll end this again for a second time round. I appreciate that, and we'll come back to you in a couple of weeks' time and see if anyone's got any questions about that.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.